Hello, dear friends. There are many opinions on the wealth crisis we are experiencing, and all of them are respectable as long as they maintain equanimity and respect. Here is a brief summary. Opinion piece. The biggest recession in history. We are very close, but not quite there. People are starting to wake up. The crisis has changed the course of history. This has triggered the economic restart. The society is not prepared to handle this. We're about to embark on a major shift. Massive adjustments in banking to reduce its employees. Economist compares Bitcoin to a pyramid scheme. Miners search for gold under Egypt's desert sands. Jim Roberts predicts outlawed Bitcoin and a displaced dollar. Maricopa vote recount triggers financial moves. International consensus to end Myanmar crisis. Burma. Spain to recruit volunteer reservists to fight cyber attacks. Iron Man like flying sweet arms to revolutionize military operations. Wonders of the Sea, the world's largest cruise ship for 7,000 passengers. Ever given crew could be stranded for years in cold battle. Governments to be replaced by spiritual people in humankind's future. Let's start. The greatest or the biggest recession in human history is the title of the Atlantis Report released Saturday, growing the concepts about global recession led to fears of a longer-term disruption of demand. Not only would this be a global recession, but it would be the largest recession in human history. This health crisis would have changed the course of history. This would not just be an economic collapse, this report writes. This would be the collapse of civilization. The whole world is shutting down and people are going crazy like we have never been crazy before. The impact on humankind would be of biblical proportions, in quotes. What is happening? We have never seen before in our lifetime. It is mind-blowing to think of lost businesses, lost jobs, lost retirements, lost security and plans, lost trust in governments. What would an economy look like after a health crisis? And who can calculate the economic destruction? A society wouldn't be equipped to handle a crisis of this magnitude. This has triggered the global economic restart we have been waiting for. Organic job creation, it's not robust. When nearly 1 million Americans file for unemployment benefits every week, that's not a good sign. Even that number is underestimated. The market shrugs it all off. It completely ignores the overwhelming amount of economic data. Investors have never been more irrational. The downside protection team has never acted so irrationally. They are pumping stock prices artificially throughout infinite margin trading desks. The Dow Jones was trading at 15,000 in 2015, with much better corporate earnings and fundamentals. The bleeding has not yet begun. The sad reality is that when markets go down, sometimes they don't come back. Russian mountain, a roller coaster. It is time to change the roller coaster cars. I repeat it. It is time to change the roller coaster cars, asks the Starship Earth of a Spaceship Earth report. The number is Starship Earth, the number of this report. The cliff would have arrived or been passed for many of us who have been on this trip for years. We could be done by now, and we just want people to wake up. For maximum impact, the coalition is looking for a fed-up, angry, aware percentage of the population. We are close, but not quite there, we hear. This trip is not over, although we may get off the roller coaster to pee and change cars. The enemy is not handled in a corner licking their wounds. They are carrying the cannon because they will fight to the death. That's all they know. People are starting to wake up. The economy is something people have in common, and they are starting to realize that what the controllers have planned is not in their best interest. The central bank is trying to drive people away from all other types of currency, and this will fail. The big change. We are about to embark on a trip of great change, and even the struggles will be swept up and pushed by the waves that propel us upward into our golden age, where the light of knowledge will transcend darkness and evil. Humankind will begin to realize the truth. Reset update. All we need is a few more percentage points to get what the coalition needs to move forward. According to some sources, one big event could do it, or a few small ones. We'll see how the situation shakes out. The tourist bay is said to be full. Courts are still being held at night in the federal buildings in DC. Courts are behind held in FEMA camps, where facilities are being built and expanded. In quotes, all the elites could be dethroned, said Smith in the Kaiser Report. However, he adds, in their attempt to stay in power, the ruling elite would constantly appeal to the presence of geopolitical conflicts, confrontation with China and other countries in order to find an unifying element of the nation. In this sense, it's not confrontation, but free and fair competition that could unite the country in a more effective way. According to hashtag, governments will be replaced in the future by spiritual people who will remain neutral and focus only on helping others. It will be much smaller than it is now and will be run by small groups. They will be going over the top to maintain balance in the community or in the world. In the near future, you will begin to receive information about your guides and guardians. They will come throughout your dreams, channelings, or a direct message would come to you from them. Their task would be to guide you throughout this ascension process. Your body is still in the process of moving into a new reality, and it requires many adjustments because you could not take this body into the fifth dimension as it is now. Maricopa audit. Arizona election workers are conducting ultraviolet testing on ballots in Maricopa. Inventor and data analyst Jovan Hutton Pulitzer has a process and patents surrounding the process where he can identify fraudulent ballots based on the paper used, wrinkles in the paper, ink on the forms, and other characteristics. Democrats tried to stop the Arizona audit but were not prepared to post the $1 million bond, so the recount continues. What are they so afraid of? Trump demands National Guard in Arizona to protect audit. Former President Trump has demanded that Governor Ducey send Arizona State Police or the National Guard to protect the current forensic audit being conducted in the county of, as legal action brought by Democrats continues against the audit. Economy. Massive adjustments in banking. Banks have implemented massive staff reduction plans to save costs and improve profitability in the face of the economic crisis, negative interest rates, and digital transformation. Some cuts have provoked a wave of criticism in recent days, with attacks on their millionaire salaries. Markets expect more clarity from central banks on stimulus. The Bank of Canada's decision to reduce asset purchases and anticipate an eventual rate hike has put investors on guard, who are beginning to demand more clarity on their plans for the Federal Reserve and above all from the European Central Bank. Digital security. The Spanish industry is arming itself to plug the leaks. The business community expects to increase its investment in cybersecurity this year to €1,324,000, 70% more than in 2020. Spain will sign up volunteer reservists to fight cyber attacks on public bodies. The Congress has unanimously approved the proposition not of law presented by the parliamentarian group Popular, in which it urges the government to create and regulate a strategic talent reserve in cybersecurity under the Ministry of Defense to prevent cyber attacks on institutions in a crisis situation. An economist compares Bitcoin to a pyramid scheme and calls it a volatile trick. Economist, essayist, and researcher Nassim Taleb, known for his book The Black Swan, published in 2007, where he warned that a possible health crisis would threaten humankind, has spoken out about Bitcoin after it recorded a plunge of almost 10%. Taleb believes that the cryptocurrency is too volatile to be effective, so it couldn't be a safe hedge against inflation. With silver under the bed in quotes, Jim Rogers predicts an outlawed Bitcoin and a displaced dollar money would become increasingly digitized. According to leading US investors and financial commentator Jim Rogers, but governments will not let Bitcoin take away their monopoly. At the same time, the analysts opined that the dollar would no longer be able to exercise its function as a global reserve currency and would soon be replaced by something else. Capital gains taxes may derail market rally. US stocks rebounded Friday from a fade the previous day as investors digested the implications of a planned capital gains tax hike, with many pointing to reasons why such a policy is unlikely to threaten the stock rally. Miners search for gold under the desert sands after Egypt changes rules. Mining companies awarded blocks in Egypt's eastern desert are set to start exploring for gold under a legislative reform that seeks to unlock vast untapped mineral resources. Third largest oil importer looks to South America. India, the world's third largest consumer and importer of crude oil, has approached the Guyana government about a possible long-term deal to buy oil, according to Guyana's Natural Resources Minister Vikram Bharat. Supply shortfall shoots palladium price to record high. The price of palladium, which has been rising steadily in recent months, broke an all-time high this week, touching $2,900 per ounce. as demand for the metal in the automotive industry continues to rise. Short news. Biden calls massacre of Armenians by Ottoman Empire genocide. President Biden Saturday publicly called the massacre of the Armenian population during World War I at the hands of the Ottoman Empire genocide in a statement and president by an American president for 40 years, and which Turkey has condemned as a grave mistake that opens a deep wound between the two NATO allies. Biden was the only world leader to wear a mask during a virtual summit on climate change with other world leaders. He was also the only head of state on camera who didn't have his national flag in the background. Consensus to end Myanmar crisis. Burma. Southeast Asian leaders said they had agreed on a plan with the head of Myanmar's junta on Saturday to end the crisis in the violence-stricken nation, but he didn't explicitly respond to a demand to halt the crackdown on civilian protesters. Tension in Jerusalem sparks Gaza-Israel attacks. Missile attacks from the Gaza Strip into Israel resumed Saturday night after a day-long ceasefire, despite a call for calm from the United Nations and threats from Israel to retaliate with force. Tensions in Jerusalem sparked the worst round of cross-border violence between Israel and the Gaza Strip in months on Saturday, with clashes between Palestinians and Israeli police. Chaos in Jerusalem after Jewish settler groups chanted "Death to Arabs" in quotes during Ramadan. Violence has erupted around the walled section of Jerusalem's Old City during the Muslims' holidays after Jewish groups staged a large demonstration at Damascus Gate on Thursday night, where they loudly chanted "Death to Arabs" in quotes. The counter-protests by Palestinian youths quickly escalated into fights between the two groups and clashes with police. Nautical news of the sea. Indonesia declares its submarine with 53 crew members broke apart. The Indonesian Navy said Saturday that after finding objects from a submarine missing in the Bali Sea over the past 2 days, it concluded that vessel was wrecked and broke apart, apparently ending hopes of finding the 53 crew members on board alive after search teams found debris floating around the ship's last location. Ever Given crew could be stranded for years amid court battle, since Egyptian authorities seized the Ever Given, the massive container ship that notoriously blocked the Suez Canal, from nearly a week and demanded hundreds of millions of dollars in compensation from its owners. The world has forgotten about the vessel and its crew. The ship has been moored on the side of the Great Bitter Lake in the middle of the Suez Canal for nearly a month, and concerns are growing that the vessel stranded that the owners of the Ever Given may be unwilling to pay the court-ordered fine, which could leave the vessel stranded for months, if not years. The world's largest cruise ship, Royal Caribbean, on Tuesday revealed information about its new cruise ship named Wonder of the Seas, which is now under construction at the shipyard in Saint-Nazaire, France, and will be the largest in the world when it launches in the first half of 2022. It is 362 meters long, 64 meters wide, and has a total of 18 decks and 867 cabins to accommodate up to 6,988 guests, almost 7,000 people. The world's most powerful tidal turbine weighs 680 tons and is capable of supplying electricity to 2,000 homes. Orbital Marine Power, a Scottish developer on floating tidal turbine technology, announced Friday that it has successfully launched its tidal energy producing turbine rated at 2 megawatts. Aeronautics and astronautics. Iron Man-like flying suit aims to revolutionize military operations. The Netherlands Ministry of Defense reported that its Maritime Special Operations Forces recently tested a spectacular flying suit developed by aerospace company Gravity Industries. The revolutionary flying suit allows a person to move throughout the air in a harness with jet engines and was tested in a variety of situations, boarding ships and in a built-up environment. A flying suit for recreational use would be nice. DARPA's aerial dragnet hunts drones with drones. The Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, DARPA, is developing the aerial dragnet. It is a system that provides a wide area surveillance capability that uses drone-mounted sensors to detect, classify, and track small drones in dense urban environments. Mars will be a glorious adventure. SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said in an interview Thursday with X-Prize founder and chairman Peter Diamandis that, in quotes, a lot of people could die in the early stages of Mars exploration, but he insisted that it is a glorious adventure. Musk stressed that the expedition to Mars is not an escape route for the rich. According to the entrepreneur, it must be understood that it is an arduous and dangerous trip in which it is possible that one might lose one's life, but it is a glorious adventure and it sounds appealing. China names Mars rover Zhurong God of Fire. China's first Mars rover will be named after Zhurong, the traditional god of fire, Beijing announced Saturday. The rover travels about the Tianwen-1 probe, which reached Mars orbit on February 24th and is scheduled to launch there in May to search for evidence of life. Natural news. A German tourist lost in Amazonian region of Colombia, who had been missing since April 13 while visiting indigenous communities in the Amazonian department of Putumayo, was rescued. The man had been missing for a week after visiting an indigenous reserve, participating in a shaman's ritual and drinking a type of tea. I imagine what it may be. The power of the mind in our body. Taking care of depression and emotional ills is fundamental during this time of crisis, because they affect our whole being. The confinement, fear, and grief of loss can generate physical effects in our body, and that is why it's so important to take care of our mental health. Irritability is a sign of depression. Anger, sleep disturbances, and lack of energy are some symptoms that a human being may be going through a depressive condition due to house confinement. Why indigenous people conserve nature better? If people would achieve sustainable practices, humans wouldn't have to be removed to save the world's species. A new scientific study revealed that people themselves do not deteriorate biodiversity, but the overexploitation of resources, and that if we want to conserve nature, we should listen to the indigenous people to avoid the destruction of ecosystems. Earth may have been a water world 3 billion years ago. Previous studies have suggested that the Earth was once submerged in water and had little or no landmass about 3 billion years ago. A recent analysis of Earth's mantle provides evidence in support of that idea. And that's all for today. Thanks a lot, dear friends.